Okay, we have gone through the fundamentals of biology. We looked at reproduction and how energy is made within the cells. We are now going to shift our focus to the larger scale. We're getting bigger and bigger as we go through here. I want to talk about the diversity of life. Okay. Now, we have been on, I've been on Earth for some amount of time. I don't know, between 20 and 80 years. I'm not going to tell you. How long has the Earth been here? 4.6 billion years approximately. Now, if we were to get in a time machine and we went back 4.5 billion years, like right after the Earth is formed, how would it be?
Very hot.
Very hot. You would like die immediately. We were being bombarded by meteorites throughout here, but beyond that, as the meteorites and everything that was hot after we've collided with some other planet to make our moon, there's a lot of lava that solidifies, but it turns out that we now have a lot of places for magma to escape and turn into lava as it flows out of our surface. Earth is full of volcanoes. Okay, early Earth, really hot, terrible place to be. Now, the good news and bad news, yes, okay. Do we have many? All right, so we are looking at the diversity of life, and we have a lot of volcanoes. So, few things come out of volcanoes. When volcanoes erupt, we get magma coming out, turning to lava. There's other stuff that comes out, though. Say it again. So, some water vapor will come out. Anything else? Ash, and is there a lot of gas that comes out of volcanoes?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay, so imagine we're on an early Earth, and lots of volcanoes that are going for like hundreds of millions of years, like legitimately 500 million years. Eventually, the smoke gets so thick that greenhouse effects stop because no more light can get in because it's so thick. What happens with the temperature on our planet when the volcanic activity starts to mellow out and the smoke is so thick that sun doesn't warm us up anymore? It starts to cool down. What happens with gases when they cool down? They start to condense, and when you have a lot of water vapor and stuff and it condenses, and there's a lot of it, what's it going to start doing in our newly formed Earth? It's going to start raining. Okay, in early Earth, we had millions and millions and millions of years of constant rain as has happened in the early days. Okay, so much was in the atmosphere that's now on the surface of our planet called the oceans, that there's a lot of water that was there. It had to come from somewhere. Some of it likely came from comets and things like that crashing into us in the early days of our planet, but a lot of it also came from the volcanoes and such. So, as we're looking at it, we have volcanoes that are starting to kind of mellow out a little bit. We have liquid water now. The atmosphere is starting to get a little bit better. What sort of life would we expect to arise initially? And just to preface this, don't care about your religious beliefs. You shouldn't care about mine. We are not talking about religion in here today. We are talking about something that is a little bit controversial, briefly. What are we talking about?
Evolution.
We're going to talk about evolution. Whether you believe in it or not, I don't care. We're going to study it. Don't care your beliefs on it. Okay. If you were going to be the first life to form on our planet, would you be a prokaryote or a eukaryote? Why? You'd be a eukaryote, you think?
I mean, I feel like it'd be much harder to be multicellular.
It would definitely be much harder to be multicellular, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to be the simplest life possible. Now, as we look at this, can you guys name any really, really simple life forms?
Plankton.
Plankton is really simple. Okay, any others? Is plankton a plant? It's plant-like. It photosynthesizes, or plankton doesn't. Algae, does plankton photosynthesize?
I'm pretty sure it does.
I think there's different types of plankton. I think it's a bigger, broader classification. Dwayne, you had one to add too. Bacteria are also really, really simple to form. Now, hypothetically, we get a bunch of things that photosynthesize in our atmosphere. And unfortunately, there's crazy amounts of CO2 left over because of all the volcanoes. But photosynthesis begins. What's one of the main ingredients of photosynthesis? You put carbon dioxide in, along with some sunlight, and what comes out? Oxygen. So check it out. We have a terrible hot environment. Cools down, starts to rain. We get little life that starts to form, and we're not going to go into how or why. That's a bigger question. Little life starts to form, and it photosynthesizes for energy. Eventually, give it enough time, what happens with the concentration of carbon dioxide in the air? Goes down, and what increases? Plants breathe in all the CO2 and they breathe out all the oxygen. So now we're seeing Earth cool down. It's starting to be less toxic with CO2 and more full of oxygen, which is just prime for life to start going, right? Okay, we fast forward another 4 billion years and allegedly we wind up here. Okay, now there's a lot of in between in there, obviously. We are not going crazy into it, but we are looking at the diversity of life, and it turns out that with modern scientific technology, we have a pretty good understanding. Okay, we are going to begin here just with preface, no real section or anything like that. We are talking about changing from very simple life forms, and over time, small little mutations lead to us. That is the theory of what? Okay, I really want to make sure that we hit this. Theory of evolution. Again, I don't really care about your personal beliefs, but if you're arguing for or against evolution in any particular situation, there is one argument that I would strongly advise you don't take. Somebody, we're going to do a little role playing. Will somebody tell me evolution's real? Just say that. Like, I don't care if you believe it or not, just say that statement.
Evolution is real.
It's just a theory. That is a terrible, terrible argument. I'm not telling you that you have to believe in evolution, but I'm telling you that saying it's just a theory is a terrible way to go about it. Scientific theories are not just pulled out of thin air. There's another theory that we all probably don't scoff at. If I drop this, what's it going to do? You were wrong. It was a good guess. What did it do? So it went down, though, right? Why? Gravity. Gosh, we have a whole theory of gravity that explains why this happens. Anybody scoff when you hear theory of gravity? Anybody argue against gravity because it's just a theory? I don't believe you, but I appreciate that you're advocating for the devil. Devil's advocate, if you guys didn't catch that joke, just for the record. I don't know anything about your religious beliefs. Anyway, the theory of evolution. It is backed by evidence. Now, it is not a fact. Science doesn't produce facts, remember. We produce ideas that hopefully can be supported or overturned. Everything so far has led to say that this is true. When we think about the theory of evolution, whose name comes to mind for you? Charles Darwin. Okay, so we are not going crazy into the evolution, at least not a ton. Does evolution happen? Yes. I don't think that, and I don't know, I don't speak about these controversial topics a ton anymore. Evolution does happen. Do we use it as people? Like, do we care about evolution happening as human beings? Why? Like, I don't really care if humans turn into something in another 100 million years. I don't care. I'm not going to be around. I don't care what we were. It doesn't directly impact me today. But does evolution come into our everyday lives currently?
Yes.
Where?
Like agriculture.
So agriculture, we selectively breed, right?
Yeah.
Now, I would not necessarily call that evolution, although it's certainly related. We can selectively breed to pull out specific characteristics of animals, right? We want chickens to feed people. If you were to take a chicken from the 50s and try to feed a family with it, you're not going to, because chicken breasts today are like 4 or 5 times bigger than they were 50 years ago. We have selectively picked the biggest breasted chickens because they produce the most meat and it's the most bang for our buck. What if you're a vegetarian and all of a sudden this doesn't matter?
Then like plants for like.
Oh my gosh, we selectively breed the crap out of plants. I'm trying to remember. I feel like we had this as a fun fact earlier this year. Anybody in here? Oh my gosh, what were they? There's like 4 or 5 things that are all the exact same plant originally that we have humans selectively changed. Mustard seed is one of them. Anybody eat pure mustard seed? Ooh, how about Brussels sprouts? They're the same thing. They come from the same plant. We have selected them differently. Broccoli, I think, is in there. There's a few more in there. I can't remember them. Bananas do not come from that group, but that's a good thought.
That is a good one because like bananas went extinct and then they,
So bananas have gone extinct. The Cavendish banana is gone. Fruit mold got it. But if you've ever had banana candy that doesn't taste like bananas, it's not that they do a bad job. It's a recipe for a fake banana. Came from a now extinct type of banana. So bananas used to taste different. Anyway, back to this. I was looking for, not only looking for, but one of the things I was looking for is I take something every year about October. I go to the clinic and they hook it up so that I don't die of influenza. What do they give me? They give me a flu shot, which is a flu vaccine. Next year I have to go get another one, if I get one. Why? So it's changed, right? Viruses are unique because they're not alive, not accepted as living things at this point in time. But they do change from year to year enough that one vaccine one year won't treat it the next year. We use the fact that they do evolve and that there's different variations of them to treat them. Okay, with that in mind, theory of evolution, we begin, and we're not going to go really in depth with this, but Charles Darwin. Okay, you guys all had bio last year or 2 years ago. I would imagine Gregory hit evolution really hard, I would guess. How hard did you guys hit evolution last year in biology? So Darwin had a crazy life. The HMS Beagle, Her Majesty's ship is what HMS stands for if you're ever seeing it. It's just a ship sent by the Queen of England. Okay. Charles Darwin did what? He was a naturalist. He was traveling around somewhere. The Galapagos Islands. Okay. Charles Darwin, a naturalist along the HMS Beagle in the early or mid 1800s. He goes to the Galapagos Islands and he notices something wonky with the birds. And the tortoises. Yes. What did you notice about the birds? Something about the finches that existed in the Galapagos. The beaks. What about the beaks?
Some are long, some are short for like breaking stuff, some birds for holes.
They're all finches, but they all have different shaped beaks because they all fill different niches within their environment. If you want to pick bugs out of a tree, you need a long, thin beak to do so. If you want to chop cactus down and be able to get things that are hiding inside, you need a big beak to be able to break those apart. He noticed that, hey, all these same birds have this changed characteristic that has served them well in their environment. Okay, now here's the crazy thing, and I don't remember it off the top of my head, and even now I have to look at my notes to remember it. Charles Darwin is who we associate with the theory of evolution, but he was not alone. Who else was there? Any other big naturalist whose name we just totally leave out of the history books, which he's probably rolling in his grave right now as we leave him out of every evolutionary conversation? That's a good point. It is Alfred Wallace, whose name we never associate, but was equally a large part of publishing and writing in the on the origin of species, the super controversial book by Darwin. Okay, now as we get here, we don't have to go crazy into this, but there is evidence, and only evidence to support this. Okay, now the theory of evolution. Remember, theories and laws are distinctly separate. A theory seeks to explain the what. So maybe the unknown. I heard somebody say it here. I thought. Do one of you whisper a word quietly? What's the difference between a theory and a law? There's a law of gravity and there's a theory of gravity. But they're different. The why. The theory says why does something happen. The law says this is what happens. So the law of gravity just says two objects are attracted. Like that happens. Einstein's theory says why does it happen? And that's his explanation. Okay, evolution, things do change. We see it. We can change them as people over time, like with dogs and all that. But the why is the theory part. What did Darwin and Wallace propose as a reason to why things evolve? To adapt. Now, as we look at it, within the theory of evolution, our first main topic, and we're not going crazy, like it's not pure evolution, I'm just front loading it all. We have this idea of natural selection and adaptation. Okay, as we look at this, natural selection and adaptation, basically it boils down to the following. There's a lot of chromosomes in organisms. Us, we have how many?
42. 46.
There you go. 23 pairs of chromosomes or 46. There are animals that have more than us. There are animals that have less than us. Now, every time that we have to reproduce cells, we have to copy that information and send it forward, right? Like it just keeps going further and further, whether it's through mitosis in our own bodies or it's through meiosis in the production of sexual reproductive material. But as we're looking at it, sometimes you think things go wrong. Like they can be a little bit off. They can go really wrong and we get huge disorders, chromosomal things. Most of them you've probably never heard of because unfortunately with chromosome disorders, normally you have two options. It's either not going to make it all the way through to be born, or they're going to die young due to these illnesses, with one really common exception. If you have an extra copy of chromosome 21, it's called trisomy at the 21st chromosome in humans, chromosome. Anybody know what that results in? It's Down syndrome. Okay, so with that, those are big mutations that have happened, but they just, by chance, something goes wrong in this process, and this is what we're left with. Do they have to be that big? Like, a big change would be numbers of chromosomes, but maybe it's just one little small part of DNA that wasn't copied properly, and now it's a little tiny change. This is what fuels evolution. Now, if we look at any particular animal, we're going to pretend like we're early giraffe. Okay, we are all early giraffes, and we're all like the big dotted horse with a long neck. Okay, let's say we're all early giraffes, and we don't have super long necks. All of a sudden, somebody's neck is a little bit longer. Why is that beneficial to a giraffe? They can eat more leaves. Now, notice what happened. It's not like the giraffes realized that there was a scarcity of food, and then in turn their bodies made their necks longer. It was that by random chance, some strange mutation happened to lead to their neck being a little bit longer. And that giraffe now has access to more food. If other giraffes starve, is he going to starve? Probably not. And if he doesn't starve and he's able to breed, is he going to pass on that gene to somebody else? Now, if we have half the giraffes have really long necks and half the giraffes have short necks, are the long neck giraffes going to pick the highest food first? Or is everybody going to go for the low-hanging fruit? Like, obviously, less effort. What happens when all the long neck giraffes and all the short necks have eaten all the other food, and now there's only food left for the long necks? The short necks die. Nobody chose or decided that this is beneficial to us. It was something random happened that served them well, and then the other one wound up dying out. This is our natural selection. This is all that we're seeing. Random mutations that can be beneficial, but they're not always going to be beneficial. We can have adaptations in natural selection or changes that don't change anything. Does my eye color really impact anything about my survival? No. Do we have different eye colors? Those are just little mutations that have no huge bearing on what genes get passed forward, unless we decide as a culture that this is a terrible eye color and this is a good one, in which case it would. But that is the whole idea behind natural selection and adaptation. So we'll just make one little short comment. Small genetic changes. So small changes in genes produce beneficial outcomes. Okay, if they're beneficial, they're going to live on. If they have no bearing or they're detrimental, they will die off, and those mutations will never see them. Okay, so we start with that. The ones that go well are the naturally selected to adapt to that situation. Okay, I don't really want to go a whole lot more into evolution unless you guys want to talk more about it. It seems crazy to me that 150 years ago I would go to jail for this. Cool. All right. As we go through here, we just covered all of this, and pretty cool conversation. We're in biology. I imagine we would go much more in depth, but I'm cool with just this. Now, as we go through here, we see that all of these little changes eventually add up. If one little change is my neck gets a little bit longer, then maybe my predators also underwent a change, and a new change that winds up being beneficial is that my coloring on my fur, whatever it is a little bit more hidden from animals. That would now become the dominant gene, and we get large changes. Now, we've never seen, as human beings, we've never witnessed true evolution happen. We've seen small changes occur, but we've never watched something that is like this big and walks on 4 legs change into something that stands up and walks on 2 legs. We've never witnessed it. Why? Yeah, I don't have, 200 million years to hang out and wait for this thing to happen, but there's evidence that it does hang out and happen, just we don't get to see it because it's such a large time scale. Okay, now as we get through, once we have this huge diversity genetically of different types of animals, plants, all these things, we now need a way as scientists to be able to talk about them. So as we go through here, we are going to go through classification of these guys. Okay, so classification of living things. Okay, your book tells a fantastic story about this, where I'm not familiar with it because I didn't grow up in Australia. But there is a reef shark. It's dangerous. They're pretty aggressive. They're gray reef sharks. Now, depending on where you are in the world, they have different names. And the textbook, it specifically goes into somebody who's scuba diving, and they said that, hey, be careful, there's some gray whalers going around. He goes, oh, there's a whale, I'm not too worried about it. And he sees it and he says, no, I think this is a shark. He goes, oh, it's a gray whaler, don't worry about it. It was a shark. It was a reef shark that he was like dangerously swimming close to because the names weren't the same. Because one person was American, one person was Australian. That's a huge issue. Guarantee that there are other things that if we tried to dig deep into our collective experience, we would find that I call something and you call something else that is terribly dangerous. But we would never know that because our language just doesn't match. Which means we need a way to classify these. Or, more specifically, we need to develop a I don't know if you've ever seen this word. A taxonomy, that's correct. We need to be able to create taxons to organize these things, to classify so we know what it is that we're talking about and to ensure that we're talking about the same thing. Yo.
I was really confused on what started with CT. But that was
Yep. Well, you see the parenthesis before the T. Okay. God, bars. All right. So as we're looking at this, we're going to try to classify these things. Okay. There are a lot of living things here. So right off the bat, how much about biological taxonomy do you know? Have you ever seen the word taxonomy?
Yes.
Okay. Can you give me anything about it?
classifies stuff.
It does classify things. That's a great point. Right now, am I an animal?
Yes. No.
Are you an animal?
Yes.
Is my dog an animal? Are my flowers in the window an animal? But are they live? So what's different? One. So how do you know plants don't have emotions?
One clone itself doesn't.
So if I clone a human, are they the same then? What if I clone myself?
But you don't do that for reproduction.
Not to your knowledge, but I get what you're saying. Like, for sure.
Do you?
Andrew. So I don't know that conscious really has anything to do with it because I don't think that anybody in here can tell me what consciousness is. I sure can't. I think I'm conscious, but what do I know? Whatever my brain knows. Maybe, I don't know. Okay, as we're looking at it, when we talk about taxonomy, I want to start at the really big. I'm going to throw up some words here and see if you guys remember any of it. Okay, right now on this planet, it depends on where you're looking at. Things overall fall into one of 2 to 4 large groups. Okay, we're going to start by just listing this out and then we'll dig into each of them. We are going to talk about the domain where something exists. Does this look familiar to you guys? Taxonomical domains. Okay, and that's okay if it does or doesn't. We'll get through it. As we look at taxonomy, and I'm trying to remember what your book does because it goes through, it really depends on where you are. We start with domain. So for our practice, we're going to say that there's 3 of them. There are 3 domains. The first of these, you guys will be able to guess no problem. The first domain is bacteria. What do you think you might find in the domain bacteria? Spot on, you got it. Okay, there's one. Can you name another? So that's too small. We have bacteria, there's our first one. So virus are super interesting. Archaea? Did I spell this wrong? EA, I did. Archaea. There's one more. Are we prokaryotes or eukaryotes? You are all complex. So it turns out that there's lots of stuff on our planet that is complex. It falls into a domain known as eukarya. Now, worth mentioning, depending on where you look, our book presents these 3. Common, what will happen, and 20 years ago, it would not have been all 3. We would have had eukarya and prokarya. Those would have been the 2. Now, once we have the ability to look really specifically at genes and do, real studies into the genealogy and what DNA looks like for certain animals, we would have put bacteria and archaea in that one group together. There is a 4th that exists out there, protista. The protists, which are alive, but they're not plants, they're not animals, they're not bacteria, They just fit into their own little weird spot. Okay. There are 3 that our book is going to use. Of these, all this tells me is, are you a bacteria that will fall within the prokaryote? Archaea will fall into either pro or eukaryote. And eukarya is anything that's complex that's more than unicellular. Okay, what if we want more specific than a domain? This is where we got, I am not a plant. I'm a fungi, but I'm not a fungus. What's the third one? Plants, fungus. So mushrooms are fungus. Let's write them out. Okay, we move from this idea of, our lovely domains. We're going to kick down to a kingdom. And there it is. I can hear it coming back to you guys right now. Okay, kingdom. We're not going to go through like all of them because it's going to be way too big of a list. But kingdom is at least still big enough that we know. I fall into a particular kingdom. Animalia. Okay, here's a fact. I don't know if it's fun. I was talking with Mrs. Holloway about this, and any idea where archaea, eukarya, animalia, where these words come from? Scientific language written in English. We draw it from a singular language, Latin. Okay, are there Latin-based languages? Yep, all the Romance languages are Latin-based. Portuguese, which is spoken in Brazil, is a Romance language. In Brazil, they do not learn them with these words. They don't learn them with the Latin words, which I thought was super interesting, that a Latin-based language system doesn't use the Latin words. Just a little, I don't know if that's fun or not. But, okay, name me another one. Animal or animalia. Plants or plantee. For real? Fungus. Okay, now we are going to stop listing examples of these because the list is going to get too big. Are there more kingdoms out there? For sure. ... And maybe I'll even do this. Okay, not agreed upon within the world of science. Okay, what's smaller than a kingdom? Phylum. Okay, for us, let's see. We are in Eukarya. We are in Kingdom Animalia. We are in phylum Chordata. Okay, we have not looked at chordates in here. Do we have backbones with nervous systems running through them? Welcome to Chordata. Cool. All right, once we're here, turns out, are there other things that have backbones? I think so. Oh my gosh, like almost all animals, right? Not literally all animals, but a lot of them. Okay, now, I'm a human, and when I was little, I drank milk produced from my mother. Or formula to represent that, depending. We are talking about a class at this point. There's a whole class within Animalia, Chordata, that produce milk. Lizards don't make milk, but they have backbones. Mammals, says Miller. Okay, let's go further. There's lots of mammals. I'm a mammal. My dogs are mammals, but we're different. Do we have any that are kind of like humans? But we wouldn't say they're humans. Anything that also is bipedal, which means they walk like me. They may talk like me or not, but we have some similarities. Monkeys, apes, primates in general. And look at that. Welcome to our order. We are primate. Hear me roar. All right. What's smaller than a primate? Because we need a way to distinguish between I'm a primate. Chimpanzees are primates, but I'm not a chimpanzee. Human. Do we go anywhere smaller than that? All right, so like if we think of primates, you guys have named a few of them already. Humans, chimps. We're going to look at the family. Can you name different types of primates? Can you name another one that's not chimpanzee and not human? Gorilla. Okay, how do gorillas walk? they normally, so more like this, they use their wrists, right? Their 4 feet. Okay, but they're also primates. So as we're looking at these, we are going to say, hey, we fall into a particular category. Ooh, I'm going to not be able to spell this correctly. No, I'm not done yet. Hominidity. We're hominids. There it is. Okay. Now, we happen to be mammals that are primates, and we're hominids. We walk this particular way. Gosh, we are sapiens, right? But there's a word I'm leaving there. We are Homo sapien. Not sexual orientation whatsoever, right? Homo just means we're all the same. So we get our genus. And human beings is where we're kind of going here. We are genus Homo. That is our genus that we're looking at. Okay, and we have one more little step along the way. Sapien is one type. So I'll tell you, we are Homo sapiens, and we're human, right? Other humans that have existed, or that are really closely related to us. Lucy was an Australopithecus, and that one doesn't work very well. You probably remember reading about Lucy in the bog, would be my guess. Maybe not. Okay. What came before Homo sapien?
Not Homo sapien.
You're correct. Neanderthal was right before this. Were Neanderthals human?
No.
We'll look. We'll look up some reconstructions. I'm going to ask you guys to help me decide when human happens. Cool. So Neanderthal is unique. Before Neanderthal, anybody remember what came before them? Homo, I think it was habilis, and then erectus, and then so forth and so on. But what you're giving me there, they're all Homo. This is the genus that they fall in. But they also have species. Okay, for ours particularly, it is sapien. Okay, this is our taxonomic system that we use to classify life in our world. I don't remember who brought it up.
What would sorry.
Viruses don't fit in here. There is no agreed upon definition of viruses are alive. Some biologists and microbiologists will say yes, some say no. They're biological entities is how your book refers to them, which is a weird way to think. Yes. Huggins, you had a question.
What would a heterosapien be?
Tell him to come back to class.
For each person who's watching this video, if you smash that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment below, I will hook you up with a reward. If not, anybody who is in class right now will reap the reward, and you will not get it. Okay, cool. Don't tell them. You have 24 hours. I like it. Cool. All right, so as we're going through here, we are seeing that there's a huge taxonomy or classification system that we can use. Remind me about the whales tomorrow. We'll look at the whales, okay? Okay, as we're here, we're going to start looking here at the smaller level. So we're going to work our way back is what's going to happen. I didn't want to draw it from small to big because that doesn't make sense in my head. When we go through here, we're going to start in by talking about the biological or bio species concept. Okay, now for this, can we all agree on what a dog is?
Yeah.
Can we?
No.
Like, are there different types of dogs?
Yeah.
Are they really truly different, or are they just made different because we've selected them to be different?
Selected.
So I like both answers. Now, I think I agree more with they are truly different, but it just depends on how big you want to talk about their differences. So as we're here, we have a really important idea. You guys have seen the word species. We are a human species. Okay, if we have a species, we require that it is a population with similar characteristics, but there's something more important that needs to happen. They have to be able to do something. They have to be able to breed. Now, more than that, you have to be able to breed and produce offspring that does something. Because, for example, lions, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think lions and tigers are different animals. Like, they're both big cats, so they're both felines, but they're different and fundamentally different. Can they breed? They can. They can breed. They produce the world's largest big cat. It's called a liger. It's like Napoleon Dynamite hit it right on the head. That movie's probably too old for you guys to know. A liger exists. They are the largest cats to ever exist, or to exist in modern day anyway. Okay, now here's the deal though. Ligers cannot breed. They cannot produce offspring. So when we have a species, we deal with a population with similar characteristics that produce, or that breed to produce. Yes, sir.
Is it like mules too?
Mules are another example of an animal that exists but is not its own species.
Can a mule breed?
Mules cannot breed. They're sterile.
Always?
Yep, donkeys can breed, horses can breed, mules cannot.
So anything that's like are the like two different kinds?
So if they can breed. So population with similar characteristics that breed to produce fertile, which just means they can also produce offspring. Okay, we have to be able to produce offspring to be the same species. Now there is a little bit of overlap. Human beings, we're Homo sapiens. You think any of you have Neanderthal blood running through your veins right now? Probably every single one of us, at least a little tiny bit. Neanderthal and Homo sapien are close enough in species that they did interbreed and they did produce offspring that were fertile. Now, primarily Homo sapiens won this fight because Homo sapiens have bigger brains and we're smarter and better at winning the long game. But some Neanderthal blood runs within us still. Okay, now, when we look at this, if we have two populations that cannot breed, we say that they are biologically or reproductively isolated. So we are reproductively isolated with most other animals. Okay, we cannot breed and produce offspring with non-human. Like, we just don't do it. We are isolated. Now, there is a little bit of room for some strange stuff that happens. So we use in science, in biology especially, we use what is known as binomial, which, welcome to math. Binomial meaning how many pieces? Two. We use a binomial nomenclature. Okay, this is a really fancy sounding name. Anybody seen the word nomenclature before? It makes me think of chemistry because when you talk about how do you name NaCl, sodium chloride, it's not sodium chlorine. That is a nomenclature system. How do we name stuff? Now, when we talk about species, we use this idea. Okay, when we look at these, we have a particular way to name things. Dogs and wolves are a good example, and we're going to make that an example. A dog is a mammal with large canine teeth that can hunt, it can eat food, and it breeds with other dogs. They breed in litters, they all make milk. Dogs have a very specific situation, right? Like, we know what a dog is. Whether it's an ugly dog or a pretty dog, doesn't matter, they're dogs. What's a cool big dog called? Not a breed of dog, I'm looking at some, like wolves. Okay. Are dogs canines? Are wolves canines? Can they breed? Yes. Are they the same species? Gosh. Now, they must be because they can breed and produce fertile offspring. But as we go a little bit further, we're going to take one more little tiny step. We use two names. When we name these things, we use, and this will be the last thing that we write because I can feel people shifting a little bit, we use a species epithet. In our two-name system, a species epithet. Now, when we look at this, we will dig in with dogs here in a little while, but specifically, how it comes out is we write the genus first. Right off the bat, it's genus, and then the species. And I'm going to uncapitalize that S on species for a particular reason. Genus, species, and then species. What was your question? Genus and then species when we're naming these. So if I say it's a canine, could be a dog, could be a wolf, could be a coyote. They are different animals. We will get this written down. The genus, canine. That's what dogs are. Anybody know the genus of a wolf? Lupus is a wolf. Okay, a dog, familiaris. So it's Lupus familiaris is a dog with family, with our families. Lupus or Canis lupus winds up being a wolf. If we do Canis latrans, we're looking at a coyote, which is a similar dog-like thing, very similar characteristics, but we classify them differently. Sorry, coyote. All right. What's that? What? A dog. Canis. All right. Cool.